Darkness. It's a word that makes most people turn away, but for one man, it became a calling. Christopher Barry D. didn't just want to read about evil, he wanted to meet it, talk to it, and look it in the eye. While most criminologists study files, evidence, and cold statistics, Barry D. chose a path that few would dare to walk. He stepped inside the world's most secure prisons, sat face to face with the kind of people who have committed acts beyond imagination, and asked them the questions no one else could. It's not just about crime for him. It's about curiosity, a burning need to understand what lies beneath the mask of humanity, to see if a spark of emotion, remorse, or even understanding still exists in the darkest of souls. What makes a human being capable of destroying another life without hesitation? Is evil something people are born with? Or is it something the world shapes within them? Imagine sitting across a table from someone who has taken lives, not in anger, not in passion, but in cold, calculated precision. The silence between words becomes heavier than the conversation itself. The eyes you meet are empty, yet observant. They watch your reactions, your fear, your discomfort, feeding on it, enjoying the control. This is the world Barry D. willingly entered, time and time again, armed only with a recorder, a notebook, and the courage to face the unimaginable. Each meeting became more than an interview. It was a battle between two minds, one searching for truth, the other for dominance. He learned that these killers didn't see themselves as monsters. Many saw themselves as superior beings, smarter, sharper, and free from the emotional weaknesses that, in their view, make others vulnerable. Barry D's mission was clear: to uncover what truly happens inside the mind of a psychopath. But what he discovered went far beyond his expectations. These weren't people who had lost control, they were people who had mastered it. Every word, every pause, every glance was part of a psychological game. They didn't just kill for pleasure or revenge, they killed because it gave them a sense of power, a feeling that they were in control of life itself. As Barry D. listened to their stories, he realized that evil isn't a monster hiding in the dark. It wears a human face, speaks in calm tones, and often smiles while describing horrors that defy belief. It's not madness that drives these people. It's clarity without conscience, and that's what makes them so terrifying. This is where the journey begins. Not with the sound of screams or sirens, but with silence. The kind of silence that surrounds a prison cell, the kind that holds the weight of 1,000 untold stories. In that silence, Barry D. found his purpose: to enter the minds most people fear to understand, to explore the abyss that exists between humanity and horror. This is not a story of crime. It's a story of confrontation, between empathy and emptiness, between light and the deepest possible darkness. And as you follow Barry D's footsteps into this chilling world, you will begin to see that true evil doesn't always hide in the shadows. Sometimes it sits right across the table, smiling. Evil. A word so heavy it echoes in every corner of human history. But what truly is evil? Is it something we're born with, a dark seed buried deep within certain souls? Or is it something life creates, a twisted reflection of pain, neglect, and suffering? Christopher Barry D. sets out to answer this question, not through theories, but through the stories of those who live at the edge of humanity itself. He begins to see a pattern, not just in the crimes, but in the minds behind them. Many of the killers he interviews speak of broken childhoods, homes filled with violence, neglect, or abuse. Imagine a child growing up where love is replaced by fear, where trust turns to betrayal, and where compassion is mocked as weakness. Over time, something inside them starts to die: the ability to feel, to care, to connect. What's left behind is not madness, but emptiness. Yet Barry D. knows that not every abused child becomes a killer. Some rise above their pain, while others drown in it. So he digs deeper. Science tells him that genetics also play a role, that some people are born with brains wired differently. A lack of empathy, overactive reward centers, underactive fear responses, all shaping a mind that doesn't process morality like the rest of us do. These people don't just break the rules, they never truly understood them to begin with. He listens as one murderer describes taking a life without emotion, as if swatting a fly. Another explains that control, not cruelty, was his addiction. Their calmness is chilling. They talk about violence the way most people discuss their morning routine. It's not rage that drives them. It's detachment. And in that detachment lies the purest form of cruelty, harm without hate, destruction without reason. Barry D begins to see that evil isn't always explosive or chaotic. Sometimes it's cold, calculated, and disturbingly logical. It's not the wild beast people imagine, it's the quiet intellect that justifies anything. To these individuals, morality is a game of convenience. If killing benefits them, they'll do it. If lying saves them, they'll smile while doing so. To them, conscience is nothing more than a story weak people tell themselves. He comes to realize something profound. Psychopaths are not shaped by one thing alone. They are the product of nature and nurture colliding in the worst possible way. A dangerous mind born in the wrong environment, raised without empathy and left unchecked, becomes a perfect storm. A storm that can destroy lives without a trace of guilt. As Barry D writes his observations, a haunting truth emerges. Evil doesn't always come from demons or devils. It comes from within us, from broken minds, neglected souls, and the absence of love. The difference between an ordinary person and a psychopath is thinner than we'd like to believe. One wrong childhood, one missing piece of empathy, one unchecked desire for power, and a human being can transform into something unrecognizable. This is the nature of evil. It's not fire and fury, it's silence and emptiness. It's a mind that feels nothing, and a heart that never learned how to care. And as Barry D stares into the eyes of these so-called soulless individuals, he realizes that to truly understand evil, you must first accept a terrifying truth. It doesn't come from another world, it comes from ours. The steel doors close behind him with a heavy echo, a sound that never stops ringing in his mind. Christopher Barry D walks down the long corridor of a maximum security prison, where every step feels like a descent into another world. The air is still, the light is harsh, and the silence is heavy. Behind those thick bars sit men and women who have crossed every moral boundary imaginable, people who have taken lives, destroyed families, and yet speak with the calm of ordinary conversation. Barry D doesn't come here to judge them. He comes to listen. And that's what makes his work so haunting. Because when evil begins to speak, it doesn't roar, it whispers. The voices he hears aren't filled with rage. They're composed, polite, and disturbingly normal. One killer tells him how he strangled a victim while describing it with the same tone someone might use to explain a recipe. Another explains how he planned every detail, every move, not out of anger, but out of a desire for perfection. It's this lack of emotion that chills Barry D to his core. These people don't cry, don't tremble, don't hesitate. Instead, they use logic, cold, twisted logic, to justify what they've done. "I had to," one of them says. "She disrespected me." Another claims he was weak. "I did him a favor." They build a world where their cruelty makes sense, where their violence feels necessary. It's not insanity, it's reasoning without morality. In these rooms, Barry D realizes that evil often wears a mask of intelligence. These are not mindless monsters. They analyze human behavior, study weakness, and use emotion as a weapon. Some even smile as they talk about their crimes, as if proud of their ability to manipulate both their victims and the world around them. To them, murder isn't chaos, it's control. There are moments when Barry D feels the tension rise, not from the killers, but from within himself. Sitting so close to someone who has taken life after life, he feels the weight of their presence. Their eyes are still, yet piercing, like they can see straight through him. They test his reactions, searching for fear. To them, the interview is another form of domination, a silent game of power played across a table. But Barry D refuses to flinch. He listens, records, and observes. The more they speak, the clearer it becomes that they live in a different psychological universe. In their minds, morality is a myth, empathy is weakness, and guilt is irrelevant. They see themselves as hunters, not criminals, and the world to them is nothing but a field of prey. What disturbs Barry D most isn't their words, but their calmness. No emotion, no regret, no humanity left in their voices. Just logic, cold, precise, unfeeling. And through these conversations, he begins to understand that evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes it sits quietly in a prison cell, speaking softly, explaining everything with reason, and feeling nothing at all. These are the conversations with the damned, moments where darkness looks you straight in the eye and tells its side of the story. And as Barry D leaves those rooms, walking back into the world of light, one truth follows him like a shadow. Once you've heard evil speak, you can never forget its voice. Evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it wears a smile, shakes your hand, and looks you in the eye with warmth that feels genuine. This is the illusion, the mask of sanity. Christopher Barry D learns that the most dangerous psychopaths are not the ones who hide in darkness, but the ones who blend perfectly into the light. They walk among us, confident, charming, and disarmingly normal. When Barry D listens to their stories, one thing becomes clear. They understand people better than most. They study emotions not to feel them, but to imitate them. Every smile, every compliment, every gesture is calculated. It's a performance, a way to appear human while hiding something that isn't. They know exactly what to say, how to act, and when to pretend to care. And because of this skill, they move through society unnoticed, wearing their charm like armor. He remembers one killer who was loved by everyone around him. A man who hosted parties, made jokes, and seemed incapable of harm. But beneath that charm was cold precision. He knew how to gain trust before he betrayed it, how to comfort before he struck. To the world, he was confident and friendly. To his victims, he was a nightmare wearing a smile. Barry D realizes that the mask isn't just a tool, it's survival. Psychopaths wear it to navigate a world that runs on emotion. Since they lack true empathy, they mimic it. When you laugh, they laugh. When you cry, they show sympathy. But behind that performance, there's nothing, just observation and strategy. Their kindness is imitation. Their love is manipulation. Their apologies are rehearsed. This ability to disguise their true nature makes them terrifyingly effective. They can charm a crowd, lead a company, or even start a relationship, all while lacking the one thing that makes us human: conscience. Barry D finds that many psychopaths see emotions as weaknesses. They don't understand why people feel guilt or compassion. To them, those feelings are tools to be exploited, not values to be lived by. He meets killers who talk about their crimes with pride, explaining how they fooled everyone: friends, family, even law enforcement. They see deception as an art form. They enjoy the act of pretending, the thrill of watching others believe their lies. For them, the real victory isn't in the violence, it's in the control. Knowing they can make the world see whatever version of themselves they choose. And that's the most unsettling truth Barry D uncovers. The mask of sanity isn't just an act. It's part of who they are. It's so convincing that even professionals can be fooled. They don't slip easily. Their lies flow like truth. Their smiles are perfectly timed. You could share a meal, a friendship, even a lifetime with them, and never know who they truly are. As Barry D steps back and reflects on his encounters, he feels a chill deeper than any prison cell could hold. Because behind the charm, behind the calm intelligence, lies a void, a darkness that wears the face of normalcy. These people are living reminders that not all monsters hide in the shadows. Some sit beside us, laugh with us, and look completely human while being anything but. This is the mask of sanity, flawless, deceptive, and deadly. It's not just how psychopaths survive, it's how they thrive. And once you've seen behind that mask, you never look at a friendly smile the same way again. At the heart of every psychopath's story, Christopher Barry D finds one hunger that overshadows them all: the hunger for control. Not money, not revenge, not even pleasure, but the pure, intoxicating thrill of dominance. To these minds, power is oxygen. Without it, they feel empty. With it, they feel alive. Inside the walls of the prison, Barry D notices that the most dangerous killers don't speak of their crimes with regret or pride. They speak with satisfaction, because in those moments of cruelty, they were in complete command. Every scream, every heartbeat, every second of fear in their victims' eyes reminded them that they were the one in control. To them, that was never about death. It was about mastery, the ability to decide who lives and who dies. He recalls one conversation with a murderer who planned every detail of his acts like a chess game. It wasn't about killing, the man said. It was about winning. Winning. That single word captures their entire psychology. They see people as pieces to be moved, not lives to be respected. They crave situations where they hold all the power, where others are powerless, afraid, dependent. Barry D begins to see this pattern beyond the prison walls too. Psychopaths are not always violent. Many use control in other forms: emotional, social, or psychological. They manipulate lovers, deceive colleagues, and play mind games with friends. Their goal is the same: to dominate without anyone realizing it. Control is their addiction, and people are their instruments. During one interview, a killer leaned forward and said something that chilled Barry D to the core. "I never wanted to hurt them," he said calmly. "I just wanted to own their fear." That was the moment Barry D understood. For psychopaths, control is not about action. It's about emotion. They want to feel untouchable, superior, godlike. They crave the look of terror, not for cruelty's sake, but for the power it gives them. Even after being caught, many of them continue to play the same game. They toy with investigators, mislead journalists, and manipulate their image to stay in control. Some refuse to confess just to keep authority figures frustrated. Others smile in courtrooms, knowing their calmness unnerves everyone. Even in chains, they find ways to feel powerful, because control to them is not physical, it's psychological. Barry D learns that this addiction to power is like an endless loop. The more they control, the more they crave it. When they lose it, they feel invisible, worthless. So they keep pushing boundaries, crossing lines, escalating their actions, trying to recapture that feeling of dominance. It's not about survival, it's about supremacy. But beneath that confidence lies something hollow, an emptiness so deep that only power can fill it. Their need to dominate others comes from the absence of control within themselves. They are slaves to their own addiction, trapped in a cycle where fear is the only language they understand. As Barry D listens to them speak, he realizes that control, power, and predation are not just behaviors. Empathy, the invisible thread that connects one human to another. It's what makes us flinch at another's pain, what fills our eyes with tears when someone else suffers, what keeps our humanity alive. But for the people Christopher Barry D interviews, that thread does not exist. Where emotion should live, there is only emptiness. Where conscience should whisper, there is only silence. He begins to notice this absence from the very first conversation. When they talk about their crimes, there is no tremor in their voice, no flicker of guilt in their eyes. They describe unspeakable acts the way most would describe a daily routine. The tone is casual, the words are precise, and the emotion is absent. To them, suffering is not something to be felt, it's something to be observed. Barry D realizes that this is the defining trait of psychopathy, the total absence of empathy. These individuals do not connect to others emotionally. They can read people, understand their expressions, and even imitate their emotions, but they do not feel them. They wear emotional masks, switching between charm, sadness, or affection whenever it benefits them. But behind that mask, there is nothing, just calculation. One killer told him, "I don't feel sorry for what I did. I feel sorry I got caught." Another said, "I don't cry for others because no one cried for me." It wasn't cruelty in their tone. It was indifference. And that's what makes it terrifying. They don't hate their victims. They simply don't care. To them, human life holds no emotional weight, no sacred meaning. It's just another variable in their pursuit of satisfaction or control. This emotional vacuum gives them an advantage most people can't comprehend. They can manipulate without hesitation, harm without remorse, and lie without shame. They never lose sleep, never second guess, never regret. They mimic empathy so perfectly that even trained professionals can be deceived. They know the words, the gestures, the right timing, everything except the feeling itself. Barry D describes how this lack of empathy doesn't just make them dangerous, it makes them impossible to predict. Because you cannot reason with someone who does not feel. You cannot appeal to a conscience that doesn't exist. Their logic is detached, their morality absent. They can see your pain, understand it intellectually, and still use it against you. That, he realizes, is their most powerful weapon. The ability to understand emotion without ever being burdened by it. He recalls one chilling moment when a killer spoke about his victim's final plea for mercy. There was no reflection, no sorrow, only fascination. "She begged," the man said softly, but her eyes were the most beautiful at that moment. Barry D felt a coldness that words could not describe. It wasn't rage he heard, it was emptiness. That emptiness is the true heart of psychopathy. And yet, these individuals can live ordinary lives, build relationships, even hold jobs. Their lack of empathy makes them adaptable. They study others like actors studying scripts, mastering every emotion they can't feel. They can fake love, loyalty, or grief so convincingly that no one suspects a thing until it's too late. As Barry D reflects on these encounters, he comes to a painful realization. Empathy is what separates light from darkness. Without it, the human heart becomes nothing more than a machine, efficient, intelligent, but soulless. And for these psychopaths, that machine runs perfectly. It never hesitates, never feels guilt, never breaks. In their world, emotions are tools, not truths. People are objects, not souls. And pain is just a reaction, something to observe, not something to share. That is the essence of the absence of empathy. It's not rage, not hatred. It's a void. A cold, endless void that allows a human being to become something far more terrifying than a monster, a human without humanity. The door clicks shut, and silence fills the room. A metal table separates two men, one a criminologist searching for truth, the other a killer who's already crossed the edge of humanity. Christopher Barry D sits calmly, notebook open, recorder on. The fluorescent light above hums faintly, casting long shadows on the concrete floor. Across from him, the murderer leans back, relaxed, smiling. The atmosphere feels ordinary, but the air is thick with unease. Barry D knows these moments too well. Every interview is a psychological battlefield, a silent duel of minds. He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't show judgment. His tone is steady, his gaze unwavering. He knows that in this room, control is everything. He lets the killer speak, guiding the conversation gently, waiting for the mask to slip. And slowly it always does. The killers talk, calmly, casually, about things that twist the stomach of ordinary people. One man describes how he tied up his victim as if recalling a cooking recipe. Another explains his method of disposal with clinical precision. The words are sharp, clear, emotionless. No remorse, no hesitation. To them, these aren't crimes. They're experiences, moments of curiosity or control. Barry D sits still, but inside his instincts scream. Every fiber of his being wants to recoil, to shout, to stop listening. But he can't. He must understand. He must keep them talking. So he asks questions, not to accuse, but to explore. "What were you thinking in that moment?" he asks softly. "Did you feel anything at all?" The answers come like cold wind. "Nothing," one replies. "It just needed to be done." The tension in those rooms is unbearable. Every smile feels wrong. Every pause feels planned. Sometimes the killer will lean forward, studying Barry D's reactions, testing for fear. Others will laugh quietly, enjoying the discomfort. They know they hold the power in that moment, the power of their story, the power of fear. And yet, Barry D never lets them see weakness. He listens with composure, every question crafted like a scalpel. There's one interview he can never forget. A murderer describes how he watched his victim beg for life. As he speaks, his tone is gentle, his expression calm, almost kind. Barry D realizes that this contrast is what makes it horrifying. Evil doesn't scream here, it whispers. The killers talk about death like it's another job, another day, another moment that simply passed. Sometimes the silence between words is worse than the words themselves. In that silence, Barry D feels the weight of every soul lost, every act described. He can almost hear the echo of their cries within the stillness of the prison room. But he doesn't let emotion take over. He has learned that empathy, in that moment, can be dangerous. These killers can sense it. They can use it. So he keeps his tone neutral, his breathing steady, his purpose clear. Each interview becomes a mirror, reflecting the darkest corners of human psychology. Some killers boast, others manipulate, some even flirt with philosophy, twisting morality into something unrecognizable. And through it all, Barry D observes not just what they say, but how they say it. The rhythm of their voice, the flicker of their eyes, the small smirk that appears when they speak about control or dominance. By the end of each conversation, Barry D walks out feeling the weight of every word etched into his mind. The coldness lingers long after the door closes. Sometimes he wonders if the evil he studies begins to stare back at him, waiting to see if it leaves a mark. Inside those interviews, Barry D doesn't just talk to killers. He faces the absence of humanity itself. Every calm confession, every quiet smile, is a reminder that real horror doesn't always scream or bleed. Sometimes it sits across from you, sipping water, speaking softly, and explaining in perfect detail how it destroyed a life, without feeling a thing. What if the monsters aren't locked behind bars? What if they walk beside us, shaking our hands, smiling at us, working in offices, running companies, or even sitting across the dinner table? This is the chilling question Barry D explores as he shifts from the prison cells to the everyday world. He reveals a disturbing truth. Not all psychopaths are murderers. Some never pick up a weapon, never spill blood, yet they leave behind trails of emotional wreckage. These are the successful psychopaths, people who channel their manipulation, charm, and lack of empathy into ambition. They don't need violence to dominate. They use control, deception, and fear. Barry D explains that the same traits found in cold-blooded killers often appear in executives, politicians, or even romantic partners. The hunger for power, the thrill of control, the complete disregard for others. It's the same dark design, just wrapped in better clothing. He recounts stories of individuals who built entire careers or relationships on lies, whose confidence and magnetism blinded everyone around them. They can read emotions like a script, yet never feel them. They know what to say, how to charm, when to smile, and behind that mask lies nothing but calculation. Barry D warns his readers that the scariest psychopaths may never face justice. Because society rewards their traits, they're celebrated for being bold, fearless, ruthless. The corporate world, politics, and even social media give them the perfect stage to perform. As this part closes, one haunting idea lingers. Maybe evil isn't always monstrous or violent. Sometimes it's subtle, dressed in success, hidden behind charm, and living quietly in plain sight. Barry D makes it clear, his purpose was never to humanize monsters or justify their actions. It was to understand them. Because without understanding, there can be no prevention. Without facing the darkness, it only grows stronger in the shadows. He explains that every interview, every moment spent across from a murderer, was not an act of compassion, but of investigation. By studying their minds, by dissecting their words, he hoped to uncover patterns, the early warning signs that could help society recognize danger before it turns deadly. Barry D describes how psychopaths often leave clues long before they act. Subtle manipulations, emotional coldness, and absence of guilt. He wants people to see these signals, to trust their instincts when something feels off. He reminds us that evil rarely appears as a monster in the beginning. It comes softly, as charm, as confidence, as control. He speaks of families who ignored small red flags, communities that dismissed odd behavior, professionals who missed clear signs of manipulation. And in every case, the cost of misunderstanding was human life. That's why he insists, knowledge is the only weapon strong enough to fight darkness. Barry D teaches that by observing, not excusing, by studying, not sympathizing, we can protect ourselves and others. His work is a call to awareness, not pity, to open our eyes before the next tragedy writes another story of pain. As this chapter closes, one truth echoes through his words. Understanding evil doesn't mean forgiving it. It means refusing to let it hide. In the final moments of his journey, Barry D looks beyond the bars, beyond the interviews, beyond the horrors he's witnessed, and asks the most difficult question of all: what truly is evil? He concludes that evil is not something born in the shadows or summoned by demons. It lives within the human mind. It's not supernatural. It's psychological, emotional, and disturbingly ordinary. Every act of cruelty begins in thought, in choice, in the slow decay of empathy and conscience. Barry D reflects on decades spent face-to-face with the darkest souls alive, men and women who crossed every line of morality. Yet through those encounters, he also uncovered something unexpected: a mirror. Because understanding them means acknowledging what we are all capable of. He suggests that the line separating good and evil is not drawn between people. It runs through every human heart. Some resist it, others embrace it. And the difference often lies in a single decision, a single moment of conscience. The message he leaves is not one of fear, but awareness. Evil doesn't vanish when ignored. It evolves, adapts, hides behind new masks. Only through knowledge, empathy, and vigilance can we protect ourselves and others from its reach. As the story closes, Barry D reminds us that to confront darkness is not to become it, but to understand it. And through understanding, to rise above it. Because once you see evil for what it truly is, not a monster, but a mirror, you begin to see humanity with clearer eyes. And that, he believes, is where true safety begins. And so, as we close the pages of Talking with Psychopaths and Savages, we step out of the darkness, not untouched, but more aware. Christopher Barry D. didn't just talk to killers. He stared into the abyss of human nature and brought back the truth most of us are too afraid to face. Evil isn't a ghost hiding in the shadows. It's real, human, and disturbingly familiar. But the more we understand it, the less power it holds over us. Every conversation he had was a reminder. The monsters we fear the most were once just people. And if we can learn to recognize the signs, to trust our instincts, to protect ourselves and others, then maybe knowledge can save lives. So as you finish this journey, remember this: awareness is power. The mind, when enlightened, can defeat even the darkest forces. If this story opened your eyes or made you think deeper about the nature of evil, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful and thought-provoking book summaries. Your support helps us bring more stories that explore the hidden sides of the human mind and spirit. And now, we'd love to hear from you. Which book or topic should we explore next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and never stop seeking the truth. Because knowledge is the only light that can guide us through the darkness.